Alright, so in the last video we installed Postgres on our system and we have a database created. So let's go ahead and create our Laravel app. So I'm in the htdocs folder here in my command line, and I'm just going to run the composer command, which if you've been following along you should know this by heart. So we're going to say create project Laravel slash Laravel, and then the name of the app. So this is going to be called Marks Manager. Okay, which is going to be a simple bookmarking manager. So we also need to do the other stuff, which is, first of all, add a virtual host. So let's go to the Apache folder, and then conf extra, and then the vhost file down here. We're just going to open that with Notepad. And I'm going to grab, actually, you know what, I'm going to just change this because I don't need the My Tweets app anymore. So let's make this go to htdocs slash Marks Manager, oops, and then make sure it's slash public, and let's call this marksmanager.dev. Alright, so we'll save that, and then we're going to have to open up Notepad as an administrator, and we need to locate the host file. Alright, so let's go to File Open, and it's going to be in your drivers folder, and then your Windows System 32 drivers etc if you're on Windows, or just your etc folder if you're on Mac or Linux. Let's change this to all files and then open up hosts, and I'm just going to rename this right here to marksmanager.dev. Alright, and then once we do that, you just need to restart Apache. We're using XAMPP, so I'm just going to go and click stop. And then we're going to click start. Alright, and then that should all work out. Okay, so the project is still being set up. So let's go back, let's go into Atom, which is the text editor I'm using, and I'm just going to open the project here. So we'll say add project folder, and let's go to, let's see, what was it? What did I call it? Marks Manager. Alright, so now our project is open. That should be just about done. Alright, so what we want to do now, let's first of all just cd into Marks Manager. And then we need to set up our configuration for Postgres. So first thing we're going to do is go to the config folder, and let's go to database.php. Alright, now if we look here, there's this default, and it's pointed to MySQL by default. We don't want that. We're using Postgres. So if we go down here, this is the MySQL it's pointing to. You can see there's also SQLite, which is kind of a file-based database system, and then there's PGSQL. That's what we want. Okay, this is the Postgres driver. And you'll see the default port is going to be 5432, and if you remember, that's the port that we chose when we did the install. Alright, now let's go back up here and just put that right here. We'll replace MySQL with PGSQL. So let's save that. And then another important step we have to take is to go to our env file. And if you guys have been following along with the projects, you know that this is where we put our database credentials. Usually we put it right here in the MySQL section, but we're not using this driver. We're actually using PGSQL, so we need to add that. Actually, you know what? We don't need to add it. We just need to change this. So let's say PGSQL. And this part here actually got me stumped the first time I did this. This has to change. This is the default port for MySQL. We want to put in here 5432, alright, which is the default for Postgres. And then for the database, remember we called it Marks Manager. Okay, and then the username is going to be Postgres, unless you changed it or created a new user. And then for the database password, just put whatever you put. Alright, and that should do it, I believe. So let's go ahead and save this. Actually, we'll change the app name up here. Okay, we'll save that, close that up. So let's just open our app and make sure that there's no weird errors or anything like that. So we'll go to, let's see, what was it, marksmanager.dev. All right, there's our site, good. Now what we're going to do is go to our command line, and we need to start to set up our models. Okay, so basically we're going to use the user model, which, as you know, if you've been following along, is already created. We do need to run the migration to create the actual users table, but we're also going to have a bookmark model and a bookmarks table. So let's first create the controller, because we also want a bookmarks controller. So we'll say PHP artisan, and let's do make controller, and we'll say bookmarks controller. Okay, actually no, we don't want, let's spell it right, bookmarks controller. All right, and we don't need any flags, we'll just go ahead and run that. All right, so now if we look over here in app and then HTTP controllers, you'll see we have a bookmarks controller, which is basically just a shell of a class. All right, so now what we want to do is create the model. So let's say PHP artisan, and we're going to do make model bookmark, and then we want to do -m because we want to create the migration file. All right, so let's go over to database migrations, and there should now be a create bookmarks table file, and we want to just add to this because we want a little more than just the ID and the timestamps. Okay, we're going to want a name for each bookmark, so let's say table, and it's going to be a string and name. All right, we're also going to want a URL or a link, and then we're also going to want a short description. All right. Oh, one more thing, we want a user ID because we want to connect the user to the bookmarks. Okay, so you should only be able to access and edit your own bookmarks. So what we'll do is make this an integer. Okay, and then we're going to change this to user_ID. All right, and that should do it. Let's save this, and then let's go over to the create users table migration. And I want to do something a little different. I want to make it so that we use the username to log in instead of the email. So by default, there is no username field, so we're going to have to just create that ourselves. So right here, we'll say table string and username. All right, we'll save that. So now that that's done, we should be able to run our migration. So let's go over here. And actually, you know what? We need to take care of the default string length for the migration. So let's go to, where is it? Providers, app service provider. And then we just want to bring in the schema package. So use illuminate/support/ facades/schema. All right, and then in the boot function here, we're just going to say schema and ;, and then we're going to say default string length. All right, and this will prevent the error when we run our migration. So we're going to pass in 191. All right, let's save that and then go over here and let's say PHP artisan migrate. Let's see, we're getting an error here. Oh, that's right. Now, when you're using PHP, you have a config file which has enabled and disabled extensions. And there's actually an extension for Postgres that is not enabled on at least on my system. So what we need to do is you want to go to your PHP folder. If you're using XAMPP like I am, it's going to be in your C drive, XAMPP, and PHP. All right, and then in here, there's a php.ini file, which is this file right here. So I'm going to go ahead and open that. And then we're going to search for, I'm just going to do a control F. We're going to search for PG. And right here, there's actually two extensions that we need to enable. Now, you see the semicolon here. That means that they're commented out, so they're not actually enabled. So we need to remove the semicolon on two of these. One is going to be the PDO, PGSQL. So I'm just going to get rid of that semicolon. And then right here, the PGSQL. So we'll get rid of that. All right, and then let's save it, close it up, and then we just need to restart Apache. All right, and if you're not using XAMPP, just wherever your PHP folder is on your server. All right, so let's go ahead and try that again. All right, so now it ran, and we can go to pgadmin, and let's go to tables and just click refresh. And now if we look in there, you see we have our users table, and we also have our bookmarks table. All right, and you can look at the specific columns, and we can look at the data, which there isn't any, but if there was, we can go to view data and view all rows, and that will show us all the data in that table. All right, so we'll be using this throughout this project. All right, so we have everything set up as far as our models, as far as running our migrations, our database. In the next video, we're going to start to work on the logic of the application.